It looks like Netflix is getting into the bidding war for Warner Brothers.
Netflix is making bold moves to acquire Warner Brothers, and that deal could place their entire library under one streaming giant. In this video, I'll reveal why Paramount's desperate countermove might backfire, pushing them out the market while Netflix locks down one of the biggest power plays in entertainment history. The streaming wars reach critical mass. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening here, because the scope of the situation is absolutely staggering. Warner Brothers Discovery, the media giant formed from the 2022 merger of Warner Media and Discovery Inc., has become one of the most valuable assets in Hollywood. I'm talking about a company that owns everything from Superman and Batman to HBO's prestige television, from CNN's news operations to the Discovery Channel's documentaries. This is an empire that spans every corner of the entertainment universe, controlling intellectual properties worth billions of dollars and distribution networks that reach into billions of homes worldwide. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and potentially explosive for the future of media. Reports emerged in mid-September 2025, suggesting that Netflix is considering a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery's streaming and studios assets. But they're not the only ones.
So apparently Paramount Skydance wants to bid for WBD. This could reshape the media landscape from superheroes to streaming giants.
Paramount Skydance is preparing an all-cash bid to acquire the entire company. What is happening is essentially a three-way chess match where each player has billions of dollars at stake, the future of entertainment hanging in the balance, and where the wrong move could reshape the entire industry landscape. This isn't about some friendly partnership or collaboration between Netflix and Warner Brothers. This is about outright acquisition and control. The rumors about Netflix's interests stem from a Hollywood source citing the company's consideration of a bid for WBD's assets, while Paramount Skydance's bid is reportedly targeting a valuation of $24 per share for the entire company. The implications of this potential consolidation are staggering when you really break down what Warner Brothers Discovery represents in the current media landscape. This is the company behind some of the most valuable intellectual properties in existence. And I'm not just talking about valuable, I'm talking about properties that have generated billions in revenue and shaped global culture for decades. I'm talking about the DC Comics universe, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the entire Justice League pantheon that has defined superhero entertainment for generations. There's Harry Potter, which is arguably one of the most beloved and financially successful franchises in entertainment history. I'm also talking about HBO, which has literally redefined what premium television can be with groundbreaking shows like Game of Thrones, The Last of Us, House of the Dragon. But the scope extends far beyond just the glamorous, headline-grabbing content that gets all the attention. Warner Brothers Discovery also owns a $6.5 billion content library that includes everything from classic Warner Brothers films that helped define Hollywood's golden age to Discovery Channel documentaries that have educated and entertained audiences for decades. They own extensive production facilities, including a 100-acre studio lot in Burbank that represents some of the most valuable real estate in the entertainment industry. They have sophisticated distribution networks, multiple streaming platforms, and decades of institutional knowledge about how to create, market, and monetize entertainment content on a global scale. The financial mechanics of these potential deals become even more complex when you understand the unique situation Warner Brothers Discovery finds itself in currently. The company announced in June 2025 a strategic plan to split into two separate publicly traded companies by mid-2026. This isn't just a simple corporate restructuring, it's a fundamental reimagining of how the company will operate in the future. One entity, focused on streaming and studios, would include the crown jewels, HBO, Max, Warner Brothers Pictures, DC Studios, and the valuable intellectual properties that drive subscriber growth and box office revenue. The other entity would handle the more traditional media operations, global networks like CNN, TNT, and Discovery Channel, along with the majority of the company's substantial $35 billion debt burden. This planned split creates both opportunity and urgency for potential acquirers, and the strategic implications are fascinating to analyze, but it might not happen.
According to the Wall Street Journal, this newly minted Paramount Skydance is preparing a majority cash bid to swallow Warner Brothers as a whole. No formal offer has been made yet, but talks could fizzle. But the goal? Scoop up WBD before it splits into two entities next next year.
Paramount Skydance's approach is focused on acquiring the entire company before the split occurs, which would allow them to pick and choose which assets they want to keep and which they might subsequently sell off or spin out. It's an ambitious strategy that could result in the creation of a significantly larger and more diversified media empire, but it also requires them to take on the full complexity and debt load of the current Warner Bros. Discovery structure. Netflix's approach, by contrast, appears more surgically targeted and strategically focused. Reports suggest Netflix is primarily interested in the streaming and studios assets, which makes perfect sense given their established business model and strategic objectives. They don't need cable networks or traditional broadcast operations. They're laser-focused on content creation, intellectual property ownership, and production capabilities that can drive subscriber growth, reduce content licensing costs, and strengthen their competitive position in the global streaming market. The financial implications of these potential deals are truly mind-boggling when you start running the numbers. Analysts at Wells Fargo have projected that acquiring Warner Bros. Discovery could provide Netflix with an 18% earnings boost by 2030, which represents far more than just incremental growth. It would be transformational change for a company that's already the dominant player in global streaming. The acquisition could potentially help Netflix achieve a $1 trillion market capitalization by 2030, putting it in the same league as tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, and Google. But let's zoom out for a moment and consider what this really means for the industry as a whole, because the implications extend far beyond corporate balance sheets and stock prices. This is potentially a fundamental consolidation of media power that could reshape how entertainment is created, distributed, and consumed on a global scale. If Netflix successfully acquires Warner Bros. Discovery's content assets, they would have an almost unassailable position in the streaming market that would be incredibly difficult for competitors to challenge. They would own not just a massive library of existing content spanning decades of entertainment history, but also the production capabilities, creative talent relationships, and intellectual property rights to create new content at an unprecedented scale and scope. Similarly, if Paramount Skydance succeeds in their comprehensive acquisition strategy, they would create a media conglomerate that could rival Disney in both scope and scale, fundamentally altering the competitive dynamics of the entire entertainment industry.
Just weeks ago, Skydance Media, led by David Ellison, son of Oracle billionaire Larry Ellison, merged with Paramount Global in a box office deal of $8 billion. That combined the forces of Paramount Pictures, CBS, MTV, and Nickelodeon.
The combined entity would unite major film studios, streaming services, broadcast networks, cable, channels, and news operations under one corporate umbrella, creating an enormous concentration of media power that would have significant implications for content creation, distribution pricing, and consumer choice. The market has already begun reacting to these possibilities in dramatic fashion, and the investor response tells us everything we need to know about how seriously the financial community is taking these rumors and reports.
When the Wall Street Journal report dropped on September 11th, Warner Bros. Discovery shares surged like crazy.
The shares climbed up to an absolutely staggering 28%, representing the company's best trading day in its entire history as a public company. But here's what makes this story even more compelling and potentially explosive. The timing couldn't be more perfect or more precarious, depending on your perspective. The entertainment industry is in the middle of a massive, once-in-a-generation transformation that's affecting every aspect of how content is created, distributed, and monetized. Traditional cable television viewership continues to decline at an accelerating pace. Streaming services are engaged in an increasingly expensive and competitive battle for market share and subscriber retention, and studios are trying to figure out the optimal balance between traditional theatrical releases and direct-to-streaming content distribution strategies. Warner Bros. Discovery itself has had its fair share of setbacks.
Warner Bros. Discovery under CEO David Zaslav has been struggling with a massive debt. Over $40 billion.
The integration of two very different corporate cultures and business models, Warner Media and Discovery, has been complex. The company has had to make difficult decisions about content investments, production priorities, and cost management that have sometimes resulted in controversial outcomes like the cancellation of completed projects or significant staff reductions. Netflix, despite its current dominance in the global streaming landscape, faces increasing competitive pressure from Disney+, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV+, HBO Max, and numerous other platforms that are backed by companies with seemingly unlimited resources and strategic patience. The company has been investing heavily in content creation, with $18 billion earmarked for 2025 productions alone, but they still rely on expensive licensing deals for much of their content library, which represents a significant ongoing cost and strategic vulnerability. Acquiring Warner Bros. Discovery would fundamentally change Netflix's strategic position by giving them ownership and control of content instead of just temporary licensing rights. This could potentially save the company hundreds of millions of dollars in ongoing licensing fees, while simultaneously securing exclusive access to some of the most valuable intellectual properties in the entertainment industry. The acquisition would also provide Netflix with access to WBD's $12 billion annual content spend, essentially doubling their content investment capacity and giving them unprecedented resources to compete with rival platforms. The controversies that could derail everything. If this was just a straightforward business transaction between financially healthy companies with clean reputations, we'd probably be looking at a relatively predictable bidding war, where the highest offer and best strategic fit would determine the winner. But nothing in Hollywood is ever that simple, and the web of controversies, political entanglements, and regulatory challenges swirling around Netflix, Paramount, and Warner Bros. Discovery are threatening to turn what should be a business deal into a regulatory nightmare, a public relations disaster, and potentially a cautionary tale about the intersection of media, politics, and corporate power in modern America. In July 2025, Paramount agreed to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Trump over edited footage in a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. This wasn't just any ordinary legal settlement. It has been characterized by critics, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, as bribery in plain sight, with allegations that the payment was specifically designed to secure FCC approval for the Paramount-Skydance merger. The settlement directed funds to Trump's presidential library and legal fees without requiring any admission of wrongdoing or apology from Paramount. But it has created a massive cloud of suspicion around the company's business practices and editorial independence. When you're talking about a potential deal worth tens of billions of dollars that would require extensive regulatory approval from multiple government agencies, this kind of political controversy represents exactly the type of complication that can derail even the most well-financed and strategically sound business transactions. The political ramifications become even more complex when you consider the broader regulatory commitments that Paramount made as part of securing approval for their Skydance merger. As part of the merger approval process, Skydance provided assurances to regulators that it would not implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, which FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr praised as eliminating invidious discrimination. However, FCC Commissioner Ana Gomez criticized this commitment as cowardly capitulation, highlighting the kind of political divide that could complicate any future regulatory approval process for additional acquisitions. This political polarization around Paramount's corporate policies and practices creates a challenging environment for any major acquisition attempt. Regulatory approval processes are inherently political, involving multiple government agencies, congressional oversight, and public comment periods that can be influenced by broader political considerations beyond just antitrust and competition concerns. The aftermath of the Trump settlement has been particularly damaging for Paramount's news and media operations, which would be directly relevant to any acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery, given that WBD owns CNN and other news properties. There have been significant resignations at CBS News, including executive producer Bill Owens in April 2025, citing concerns about editorial autonomy, and CEO Wendy McMahon departed in May amid disputes over editorial direction. The cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, just days after his on-air criticism of the Trump settlement, has been officially attributed to financial considerations, but many industry observers and media critics see it as potential retaliation for editorial content that was critical of corporate leadership. These developments have created serious and legitimate concerns about journalistic independence and editorial integrity that could significantly complicate any acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery. The prospect of the same company that settled with Trump for $16 million, also gaining control over CNN, one of the most prominent news networks in the world and a frequent target of Trump's criticism, raises obvious questions about potential conflicts of interest, editorial independence, and the ability of news organizations to maintain credibility and public trust under such corporate ownership. Meanwhile, Netflix is dealing with its own significant set of controversies and public relations challenges that could impact their ability to successfully pursue and complete a major acquisition. In September 2025, organized boycott campaigns emerged following Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings' $2 million personal donation to California Governor Gavin Newsom's redistricting efforts, Conservative groups and activists have tied this donation to broader Democratic political support, leading to coordinated social media campaigns calling for mass subscription cancellations and sustained boycotts of the platform. The political controversy deepened significantly with the resurfacing of a Netflix advertisement campaign warning women about potential dangers on public transportation, which often portrayed white men as potential threats. This advertising campaign regained widespread attention and generated significant controversy following a tragic incident in Charlotte, North Carolina, with critics arguing that Netflix perpetuates harmful racial stereotypes and promotes divisive messaging. Netflix is also dealing with ongoing content controversies that reflect broader cultural and political divisions in American society. The series Adolescence, which premiered in March 2025, has generated significant debate and polarized reactions. While some critics and educators have praised the series for tackling important issues like online radicalization and youth mental health, others have condemned it as divisive propaganda that promotes anti-white sentiment and contributes to social tensions. The fact that the UK government has integrated this series into school curricula to combat misogyny and online radicalization has only intensified the political debate surrounding Netflix's content decisions and editorial policies. Warner Bros. Discovery hasn't escaped controversy and criticism either, facing significant challenges related to its corporate governance, content decisions, and financial management since the 2022 merger. The company has faced widespread criticism for its handling of content and creative projects since the merger, including the controversial cancellation of numerous high-profile projects and significant workforce reductions. The decision to completely shelve the nearly completed Batgirl film, despite its substantial $90 million production budget, created a crisis of confidence among creators, talent representatives, and fans about the company's commitment to its creative projects and its respect for artistic endeavors. CEO David Zaslav's leadership and decision-making have drawn mixed reactions and significant criticism throughout his tenure, with industry observers and former employees pointing to what they characterize as short-sighted cost-cutting measures that have damaged the company's creative reputation and relationships with talent. The company's massive debt load has necessitated difficult financial decisions and operational changes, but the way these decisions have been communicated and implemented has created ongoing tensions with creative talent, labor unions, and fan communities. The broader regulatory environment adds another significant layer of complexity and potential obstacles to any major media acquisition. Senator Elizabeth Warren has specifically and publicly called a potential Paramount-Warner Bros. Discovery merger a dangerous concentration of power that must be blocked by regulatory authorities. This isn't just routine political posturing or generic opposition to corporate mergers. It's a clear and direct signal that any merger involving these companies will face serious, sustained, and well-organized political opposition from influential lawmakers who have significant influence over regulatory processes. The DOJ and FTC would be required to conduct extensive reviews of any horizontal merger between major media companies, specifically examining potential anti-competitive effects, including possible increases in consumer prices, reduced content diversity, decreased innovation, and weakened bargaining power for content creators and independent producers. The precedent of the 2019 Disney-Fox merger, which faced extensive regulatory review, multiple conditions, and significant delays, suggests that any deal of this magnitude would face months or potentially years of intensive scrutiny from multiple government agencies. International regulatory challenges could also significantly complicate any major acquisition involving these global media companies. Netflix has already faced substantial fines and regulatory action in Turkey for distributing LGBTQ+ content that officials claim violates local family values standards, and similar regulatory challenges and cultural sensitivities in other international markets could impact the company's global operations and expansion strategies. Any acquisition that significantly increases Netflix's market dominance or content control could attract additional international regulatory attention and potential restrictions in key global markets. The financial implications and legal complications arising from these various controversies are substantial and multifaceted. Paramount has announced plans for thousands of additional job cuts following its merger with Skydance, building on previous workforce reductions that affected over 2,000 employees across multiple divisions and geographic regions. Paramount is currently facing a class action lawsuit specifically related to layoffs affecting over 300 workers, with former employees alleging violations of New York's Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Warn Act for failing to provide adequate advance notice of large-scale layoffs. Additionally, there is an ongoing privacy rights lawsuit against Paramount Global filed in June 2025, along with various other disputes related to content licensing, production agreements, and intellectual property rights. For Netflix, the subscription-based business model makes the company particularly vulnerable to organized boycott campaigns campaigns and coordinated cancellation efforts. While historical data suggests that past boycott campaigns have generally had minimal long-term impact on subscriber growth and financial performance, the cumulative effect of multiple ongoing controversies and sustained political opposition could potentially affect the company's growth trajectory, market valuation, and ability to secure financing for major acquisitions. Public sentiment and social media reactions, as reflected across platforms like Reddit, Twitter, and Facebook, show significant concern and opposition to increased media consolidation and corporate concentration. Fans and industry observers express fears about potential job losses, reduced creative diversity, increased consumer prices, and the potential for monopolistic behavior by large media corporations. While public opinion doesn't directly determine business outcomes or regulatory decisions, it can influence political pressure on lawmakers, regulatory agencies, and government officials to intervene in or oppose major corporate transactions. The controversy around content decisions and creative control has also created ongoing tensions with high-profile content creators and production partners. South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker have publicly criticized the Paramount-Skydance merger, delaying the production of season 27 and removing the show from Paramount Plus globally, though it remains available on Pluto TV. These kinds of high-profile disputes with major content creators and intellectual property owners could significantly complicate any company's ability to maintain and expand their content libraries, particularly when pursuing acquisitions that depend on retaining existing creative relationships and talent agreements. The future of entertainment hangs in the balance. The decisions made in the coming months about Warner Bros. Discovery's future won't just affect corporate balance sheets or stock prices. They will fundamentally alter the landscape of global entertainment, influencing everything from the movies we watch in theaters to the shows we stream at home, from the news we consume to the very economics of storytelling itself. Let's start by examining in detail what each potential outcome would mean for the industry, for consumers, and for the broader cultural ecosystem that entertainment helps to create and sustain. If Netflix successfully executes their targeted acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery's streaming and studios assets, we're looking at the creation of what could become the most powerful and influential content empire in the history of entertainment. This wouldn't just be about adding content to Netflix's existing library. It would represent a fundamental shift in how content is owned, controlled, and distributed globally. Critics and industry observers warn that a Netflix acquisition could spell disaster for cinema, as the company's streaming-first approach has historically prioritized direct-to-streaming releases over traditional theatrical experiences. Warner Bros. Has built its reputation and cultural influence on creating big-screen spectacle and communal movie-going experiences that have defined popular culture for decades. The prospect of future Superman films, Batman movies, or other major blockbusters bypassing theaters entirely represents a fundamental shift in how audiences experience and engage with major entertainment properties. Netflix's approach, which some critics characterize as a quantity over quality model, could potentially impact the creative vision and cultural significance that has made Warner Bros. Films culturally influential and artistically respected. The studio's recent box office success, including multiple films that have grossed hundreds of millions of dollars and generated significant cultural conversation, demonstrates the continuing value and importance of the theatrical experience in creating shared cultural moments and communal entertainment experiences. If Netflix prioritizes direct-to-streaming releases and data-driven content decisions over traditional creative development and theatrical distribution, it could fundamentally change how audiences discover, experience, and discuss major entertainment properties. The loss of the theatrical experience wouldn't just affect box office revenue. It would alter the social and cultural dimensions of how entertainment shapes public discourse and shared cultural experiences. The alternative scenario, a successful Paramount Skydance acquisition of the entire Warner Bros. Discovery company, presents its own set of transformative possibilities and potential consequences for the industry. The combined entity would unite major film studios, streaming services, broadcast networks, cable channels, and news operations under one massive corporate umbrella, creating a media conglomerate that could rival Disney in both scope and scale, while potentially surpassing it in certain key areas like news and sports programming. Industry experts and analysts, including FX chairman John Landgraf, have described such comprehensive industry consolidation as inevitable, given the economic realities and competitive pressures that legacy media companies face when trying to compete with well-funded tech giants like Netflix, Amazon, Apple, and Google. A Paramount-Warner Brothers Discovery merger could create the kind of diversified, vertically integrated media company that has the scale, resources, and strategic flexibility necessary to compete effectively across multiple platforms, revenue streams, and geographic markets. The potential operational synergies are significant and could reshape the competitive landscape in multiple ways. Combining streaming platforms like Paramount Plus and HBO Max could create a unified service with over 100 million subscribers, providing the scale and subscriber base necessary to compete directly with Netflix's global dominance while offering a more diverse and comprehensive content library that spans news, sports, entertainment, and premium programming. Merging news operations like CBS News and CNN could create an enormously powerful and influential information network with the resources to compete effectively in an increasingly fragmented and competitive news landscape. The combined entity would have unprecedented reach across broadcast television, cable networks, streaming platforms, and digital distribution, potentially creating new opportunities for cross-platform programming and audience engagement. Combining sports rights and programming from CBS and Turner could provide significant leverage in the increasingly expensive and competitive sports content market, where rights fees continue to escalate and exclusive content becomes more valuable for subscriber acquisition and retention. The combined entity would have enhanced bargaining power with major sports leagues and could potentially create new programming opportunities that leverage multiple distribution platforms and audience engagement strategies. However, this level of consolidation comes with its own set of serious concerns and potential negative consequences that extend well beyond corporate strategy and financial performance. Industry experts and labor advocates warn that such mega mergers typically lead to massive job losses and workforce reductions as companies eliminate overlapping operations, redundant positions, and duplicate functions across multiple divisions and geographic regions. The human cost of these corporate consolidations extends far beyond executive boardrooms and shareholder returns to affect the writers, producers, technicians, administrative staff, and support personnel who actually create the entertainment content that audiences consume. The entertainment industry has already experienced significant consolidation in recent years, with major mergers like Disney's acquisition of Fox, AT&T's purchase of Time Warner, and numerous other transactions that have reduced the number of independent companies and increased the market share controlled by large corporations. Additional mergers and acquisitions could raise serious concerns about monopolistic behavior, anti-competitive practices, and the concentration of media power in the hands of a relatively small number of corporate entities. International considerations and global market dynamics also play an increasingly important role in evaluating major media transactions and their potential consequences. Global markets have different regulatory frameworks, cultural sensitivities, and political considerations that can impact how American media companies operate and distribute content internationally. Any major consolidation in the U.S. entertainment industry could have significant ripple effects in international markets and could potentially attract regulatory scrutiny from foreign governments concerned about American cultural influence and media dominance. Fan reactions and public sentiment across social media platforms reveal the deeply personal and emotional dimensions of these corporate maneuverings that often get overlooked in financial and strategic analyses. Some fans see potential benefits in unified content libraries, enhanced production values, and greater investment in beloved franchises and characters. Others express deep concerns about reduced competition, creative homogenization, algorithmic content decisions that prioritize data over artistic vision, and the potential loss of the diverse, independent voices that have historically contributed to the richness and variety of entertainment options available to audiences. The concern about streaming services prioritizing algorithmic content creation and data-driven decision-making over traditional creative development and artistic vision is particularly prevalent among serious film and television enthusiasts. Many fans worry that Netflix's well-documented data-driven approach to content creation could diminish the auteur-driven filmmaking and creative risk-taking that has historically characterized Warner Brothers' approach to content development. DC Comics fans have expressed particular anxiety and uncertainty about the future of their favorite characters and storylines, recognizing that any change in corporate ownership could dramatically alter how these iconic properties are developed, produced, and presented to audiences. The recent success of DC films and the optimistic trajectory of the franchise under current leadership has created hope and enthusiasm among fans, but corporate uncertainty and ownership changes threaten to undermine that positive momentum and create anxiety about future creative directions. Looking toward the future and considering the broader implications for the entertainment industry, the outcome of this situation will likely establish important precedents and influence how future media consolidation is evaluated, structured, and regulated. If government regulators approve major acquisitions, despite significant antitrust concerns and political opposition, it could signal the beginning of a new era of accelerated media consolidation, where scale and financial resources become the primary determinants of competitive success. Alternatively, if regulatory authorities block or significantly restrict such deals based on competition concerns, political considerations, or public interest arguments, it might force entertainment companies to pursue alternative strategies for achieving scale, competitiveness, and market positioning that don't involve direct acquisition and consolidation. The technological dimensions of these potential deals cannot be overlooked or underestimated in their strategic importance. Streaming technology, content delivery networks, data analytics capabilities, and artificial intelligence applications are becoming increasingly critical competitive advantages that can determine success or failure in the modern entertainment landscape. Any major acquisition would need to account for not just traditional content libraries and production capabilities, but also the sophisticated technological infrastructure and data analytics capabilities necessary to deliver entertainment content effectively to global audiences while maintaining competitive performance and user experience standards. The creative community's response and adaptation to these potential changes will be absolutely crucial for the long-term success and cultural relevance of whatever entertainment entity emerges from this process. Content creators, including showrunners, directors, writers, actors, and producers, are essential stakeholders whose creative vision, artistic expertise, and professional relationships ultimately determine the quality, appeal, and cultural significance of the entertainment content that audiences consume and engage with. Their willingness to work collaboratively with whatever corporate structure emerges from this consolidation process, their confidence in the new entity's commitment to creative excellence and artistic integrity, and their ability to maintain creative independence while working within larger corporate frameworks will significantly impact the quality and cultural relevance of future entertainment content. The story of Warner Bros. Discovery's future continues to unfold and evolve with each passing day. Regardless of which path the industry ultimately takes, one thing is absolutely certain: the entertainment world as we have known it will never be quite the same, and the changes we are witnessing today will continue to shape and influence how stories are told, how culture is created, and how audiences engage with entertainment content for many generations to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.